I was working the front desk at a hotel in Germany when an American guest came downstairs looking absolutely panicked. He said his room was broken. I asked what was wrong. He pointed upstairs and said the toilet had 2 buttons and he didn't know which one to push. So he'd been holding it for 3 hours. 3 hours. I walked him back to his room and showed him the buttons. Small flush, big flush. He stared at me like I'd just explained quantum physics. Then he asked why we needed 2 buttons when America does fine with 1. I didn't have an answer that would satisfy him. My co-worker in Prague had a similar moment. An American woman called the front desk at 2 in the morning. She was whispering. She said there was a second toilet in her bathroom, but it was too low and had no seat. She thought maybe it was for children. My co-worker had to explain what a bidet was. The woman went silent for a full 10 seconds. Then she admitted she'd been washing her feet in it. Another guy I know works at a hostel in Amsterdam. He said an American tourist came to him confused about the bathroom setup. The shower was just in the middle of the floor with a drain. No curtain, no separation, just a shower head on the wall. The American asked where the actual shower was. He thought that was maybe for rinsing mops. When my friend explained that was the shower, the guy asked how you're supposed to keep the rest of the bathroom dry. My friend said you don't. The whole room is the shower room. The American looked betrayed. But it gets better. I was traveling through Japan and met an American couple at a convenience store. They'd just come from a public restroom and they were rattled. The husband said the toilet tried to communicate with him. He pressed a button and water sprayed. He pressed another button and music played. He pressed a third button and the seat warmed up. He said he felt like he was operating a spaceship just to use the bathroom. His wife said she just hovered the entire time because she couldn't figure out what was safe to touch. They asked if I knew what all the buttons did. I didn't. Nobody does at first. You just push things and hope for the best. These moments happen constantly. Americans abroad face bathroom culture shock in ways that never make it into travel guides. It's not just about toilets and bidets. It's about paying to use public restrooms. It's about the doors that don't reach the floor or the ceiling. It's about why some countries have bathroom attendants and others have squat toilets. It's about all the small differences that make you realize your normal isn't everyone's normal. And somehow, bathrooms become this universal source of confusion and comedy. I was studying in London when my American roommate discovered you have to pay to use public toilets. We were walking through a train station, and she needed to go. She walked up to the turnstile, saw the coin slot, and froze. She turned to me and said, "This had to be a joke." I told her it wasn't. She asked what happens if you don't have coins. I said you hold it or find a cafe. She stood there visibly processing this information. Then she said in America, "Bathrooms are free because it's a human right." I told her that was great. But we were in England now and she needed 50 pence. She didn't have it. We had to leave the station and find a McDonald's. My friend worked at a tourist information center in Berlin. He said Americans would come in multiple times a day asking where the free bathrooms were. He'd explain that most public toilets charge a small fee, usually 50 cents or €1. They'd always react the same way. First confusion, then outrage, then acceptance. One woman told him this was why America won the Cold War. He didn't know what to say to that. Another guy said charging for bathrooms was unconstitutional. My friend reminded him he wasn't in America. The guy said human rights don't have borders. My friend just pointed him toward the nearest paid restroom. But the drama doesn't stop at payment. There's the whole attendance situation. I was in a bathroom in Paris, and there was a woman sitting at a table with a tip plate. An American tourist walked in, used the facilities, washed her hands, and walked out. The attendant said something in French. The American didn't understand. The attendant pointed at the plate. The American looked horrified. She said she already paid to get in. The attendant shook her head and kept pointing. I had to step in and explain that the entrance fee goes to the facility, but you're expected to tip the attendant for keeping things clean. The American asked how much. I said €1 is fine. She put down €3 and practically ran out. I saw her later telling her husband that Paris has bathroom hostage situations. Then there's the whole squat toilet situation. My coworker in Italy said an American family came back from a road trip absolutely traumatized. They'd stopped at a rest area and found squat toilets. The mom said she thought it was broken. The dad said he assumed it was some kind of art installation. The teenage daughter refused to go in at all. They held it for another hour until they found a gas station with Western-style toilets. My coworker tried to explain that squat toilets are common across many parts of Europe and Asia. The mom asked why. My coworker said some cultures consider them more hygienic. The American family exchanged looks. The dad said he'd rather hold it. They did for the rest of the trip. I witnessed something similar in a train station in the south of France. An American guy came out of the bathroom looking confused and slightly angry. He found his friend and said, "Someone stole the toilet." His friend asked what he meant. The guy said he went into a stall and there was just a hole in the ground with footprints on either side. His friend suggested maybe that was the toilet. The guy refused to believe it. He said that's not a toilet, that's a hole. His friend asked what he did. The guy admitted he went to a different stall and found the same thing. Eventually, he gave up and used it anyway, but he was complaining about it for the next 20 minutes. He kept saying that in America we have actual toilets with seats, as if Europe hadn't heard of this technology. And then there's the confusion over bathroom doors. I was at a restaurant in Barcelona when an American woman came back to her table looking flustered. She told her husband the bathroom door was broken. He asked how. She said the door only comes down to your knees and only goes up to your shoulders. You can see people's feet and heads. Her husband went to check. He came back equally confused. He said that must be some kind of building code violation. I leaned over from the next table and told them it's intentional. They design it that way for ventilation and safety. The woman asked what that had to do with safety. I explained that if someone passes out or needs help, people can see under or over. She thought about this. Then she asked why they don't just make normal doors and put a window in them. I had no answer. Her husband said this was the kind of thing that makes him appreciate America. They both nodded and went back to their meal. My favorite public bathroom story comes from a friend who works near the Colosseum in Rome. An American tourist asked him where the nearest free public restroom was. My friend explained they're almost all paid in the tourist areas. The American looked devastated. He said he'd already spent €5 on bathroom fees that day. My friend suggested he buy a coffee at a cafe and use their restroom. The American asked if that was free. My friend said no, but at least you get coffee. The American calculated this in his head. Then he said a coffee costs more than the bathroom. My friend agreed. The American stood there in silence for a solid 30 seconds. Then he said this trip was way more expensive than he'd budgeted for. My friend suggested planning bathroom stops better. The American walked away, shaking his head. My friend saw him an hour later, coming out of a paid toilet looking resigned to his fate. I was visiting Tokyo when I watched an American man have a full breakdown in a department store bathroom. He came out looking like he'd seen something he couldn't unsee. His wife asked what was wrong. He said the toilet did things. She asked what things. He said it made noises, shot water at him, dried him off, and played music. He wasn't sure which button did what. He just pressed everything in a panic. His wife went in to investigate. She came out 10 minutes later equally overwhelmed. She said the control panel had more buttons than their TV remote. They both agreed they were just going to hold it for the rest of the trip. I told them Japanese toilets are actually amazing once you figure them out. The husband said he didn't want to figure them out. He wanted a normal toilet that just flushes. His wife suggested they find Western hotels. They did. My friend who lives in Osaka said this happens constantly. He's seen American tourists take photos of the toilet control panels because they can't believe how complicated they are. One guy asked him if you needed a manual. My friend said sort of, but most of it is intuitive once you try. The American disagreed. He said nothing about spraying water in random directions is intuitive. My friend tried to explain the bidet function. The American cut him off and said he knew what a bidet was, but bidets are separate. Combining them with the toilet is chaos. My friend asked if he'd tried it. The American admitted he hadn't and wouldn't. My friend said that was fair, but it's not just Japan. I was in South Korea at a cafe when an American woman asked the staff if the bathroom toilets were safe. The staff looked confused. She clarified that she'd heard Korean toilets have a lot of buttons and she didn't want to break anything. The barista assured her the toilets were safe and the buttons were labeled. The woman said she couldn't read Korean. The barista said many of them have pictures. The woman seemed relieved. She went to the bathroom. 5 minutes later, we heard a yelp. She came out soaking wet from the knees down. She'd pressed the bidet button while standing up to read the labels. The barista gave her paper towels. The woman said this was exactly what she was afraid of. The barista apologized. The woman said it wasn't his fault, but she was definitely writing about this in her travel blog. Then there's the opposite problem. My coworker in rural Scotland said an American guest complained that the shower in his room was too simple. The guy said there was just one knob, and he couldn't figure out how to adjust the temperature separately from the pressure. My coworker explained that in many European bathrooms, one knob controls both. You turn it to find the right balance. The American said that was inefficient. In America, you have separate controls, so you can get it perfect. My coworker asked if he'd figured it out. The American admitted he'd taken a lukewarm shower because he didn't want to accidentally scald himself. My coworker offered to show him how it worked. The American declined. He said he'd just shower less during the trip. I saw something similar in a hostel in Ireland. An American backpacker came to the front desk saying the shower was broken. The staff asked what was wrong. He said the water turned off in the middle of his shower. The staff asked if he pressed the button again. The guy asked what button? The staff explained that the shower has a push-button system. You press it, and you get water for a set amount of time, then you press it again. It's for water conservation. The American looked stunned. He asked what you're supposed to do if the water stops while you have shampoo in your hair. The staff said you press the button again. The guy asked why they don't just leave the water running like a normal shower. The staff explained it wastes water. The American said water isn't exactly scarce in Ireland. The staff didn't argue. The guy went back upstairs. The staff told me later he pressed the button 17 times during one shower. They could hear it from downstairs. My absolute favorite technology confusion story comes from a friend in Germany. An American tourist came to his repair shop holding a shower head. He said he'd accidentally broken it off the wall in his Airbnb and needed to buy a replacement before the host found out. My friend examined it. He explained that it wasn't broken. It's a handheld shower head. You're supposed to take it off the mount. The American went silent. My friend asked if he'd been showering with it attached the whole time. The American admitted he had. He'd been doing this awkward crouch thing to fit under the water. He thought European showers were just built lower. My friend showed him how it worked. The American held the shower head in his hand like he'd discovered fire. Then he asked why no one told him this. My friend said it's common knowledge in Europe. The American said nothing about Europe is common knowledge to Americans. He had a point, but the technology gap goes both ways. I watched an American in a Paris hotel try to flush the toilet by waving his hand over the sensor. He waved for a solid minute. Nothing happened. He checked if there was a battery compartment. There wasn't. Finally, he looked around and found the manual flush button on the wall. He pressed it. The toilet flushed. He looked so confused. His friend came in and asked what took so long. The American said the toilet was old-fashioned. It didn't have a sensor. His friend said most European toilets don't. The American asked when they were planning to upgrade. His friend said probably never. The American couldn't understand why Europe was so behind on automatic toilets, but so ahead on bidet technology. His friend said that was a fair question. Neither of them had an answer. I was working at a spa in Iceland when an American couple walked into the locker room fully clothed. They looked around nervously. I asked if they needed help. The woman whispered that everyone was naked. I confirmed that yes, this is a communal shower area. She asked if there were private stalls. I said no. The husband asked if this was legal. I assured him it was normal. He said in America you shower in private before getting in the pool. I explained that in Iceland, everyone showers together naked before entering the thermal baths. It's about hygiene. The couple exchanged looks. The wife asked if they could skip the shower. I said absolutely not. The husband asked if they could shower in their swimsuits. I said no. They stood there frozen. Eventually, they went in. They came out 20 minutes later, looking traumatized but clean. The wife said she'd kept her eyes on the ceiling the entire time. The husband said this experience would stay with him forever. My friend in a gym in Sweden had a similar situation. An American member came to complain that people were naked in the sauna. My friend asked if something inappropriate happened. The American said no, just regular nakedness. My friend explained that saunas in Sweden are typically done nude. The American said that seemed unnecessary. My friend said it's cultural. The American asked if there were any rules against wearing swim trunks in the sauna. My friend said technically no, but locals would find it strange. The American decided he'd be fine with being strange. He wore his swim trunks. My friend said the Swedish members gave him looks, but didn't say anything. The American told people later he'd successfully integrated while maintaining his boundaries. My friend didn't have the heart to tell him that everyone thought he was weird. Then, there's the bathroom silence expectation. I was in a library bathroom in Copenhagen when an American woman was on a phone call in the stall. She was talking at full volume about her day. Another woman, clearly local, knocked on her stall and asked her in English to please be quiet. The American said she was almost done. The local woman said that's not the point. Bathrooms are quiet spaces. The American came out and said she didn't know that was a rule. The local woman said it's not a rule, it's respect. The American apologized but seemed confused. She found her friend outside and said Europeans have bathroom etiquette she'd never heard of. Her friend said she'd noticed that too. Apparently, you're not supposed to talk on the phone, play music, or have loud conversations. The American asked how anyone knows this. Her friend said probably by getting corrected in bathrooms. My co-worker in the Netherlands told me about an American guest who got into an argument with another hotel guest over paper towels. The American had used a large stack of them to dry his hands. The other guest said something to him in Dutch. The American asked if he spoke English. The guest switched languages and said, "You're wasting paper." The American said he's allowed to use however much he needs. The guest said it's disrespectful to the environment. The American said they're paper towels. They're meant to be used. The guest said yes, but not an entire stack for one hand wash. The American told my coworker about this later. He wanted to know if there was a paper towel limit he wasn't aware of. My coworker said no official limit, but Europeans tend to be more conservative with resources. The American said this was another thing they don't tell you in travel guides. I witnessed something funny in a restaurant bathroom in Brussels. An American man was washing his hands when a local man reached past him to grab a towel. The American said, "Excuse me," in an offended tone. The local man looked confused. The American said you could wait your turn. The local man said he was just getting a towel. The American said he was still using the sink area. The local man said the sink and the towel dispenser are different spaces. The American disagreed. He said the whole counter is one zone, and you wait until the person is done. The local man said that's not how it works here. The American said that's how it works in civilized places. I had to step in before it escalated. I explained to the American that personal space expectations are different in Europe. People stand closer, reach past each other more, and don't really queue for bathroom sinks. The American said that sounded like chaos. I said it works fine once you're used to it. He didn't look convinced. Another thing that confuses Americans is the bathroom attendant tip situation. I watched this play out in a club bathroom in Berlin. An American guy used the facilities, washed his hands, and the attendant handed him a towel. The American said thank you and walked away. The attendant called after him. The American turned around. The attendant pointed at the tip plate. The American said he didn't have cash. The attendant kept staring. The American pulled out his phone and asked if they took Venmo. The attendant said no. The American apologized and left. His friend asked what happened. The American said there was a bathroom tip situation and he didn't have coins. His friend said he'd given him a 20 earlier. The American said that was too much for a bathroom tip. His friend said, then break it at the bar. The American said he shouldn't have to plan his cash around bathroom economics. His friend agreed, but said, that's just how it is here. The American went back later with proper change. The attendant nodded at him. The American said, this was the most stressful bathroom experience of his life. My favorite etiquette story comes from a friend in Portugal. An American family asked him why the toilet paper goes in the trash can, and not the toilet. My friend explained that some older plumbing systems can't handle toilet paper being flushed. The mom asked how old. My friend said some buildings are centuries old. The dad said that seemed like something they should fix. My friend said renovating old buildings is complicated. The teenage son asked what you're supposed to do with used toilet paper. My friend pointed at the bin. The son looked horrified. The mom asked if this was sanitary. My friend said the bins are emptied regularly. The family seemed doubtful, but accepted it. Later, my friend overheard them discussing it. The dad said this was the kind of thing that makes you appreciate modern American plumbing. The whole family agreed. I was back working that hotel desk in Germany a few months later. A different American guest came down and said he'd figured out the 2-button toilet system. I congratulated him. He said it only took him 3 days. Then he asked why the light switch was outside the bathroom. I told him that's common in older European buildings. He asked what you're supposed to do if someone turns off the light while you're in there. I said, hope you have good reflexes. He didn't laugh. He said this was going in his 1-star review. I told him that was fair. The thing about bathrooms is they reveal how different normal can be. Americans grow up with certain expectations. Free public restrooms, automatic sensors, privacy gaps in stall doors, single flush toilets, individual shower stalls. These things seem universal until you leave the country and realize they're not. Then you're standing in a German train station with no coins, staring at a turnstile, wondering if you can hold it until you get to your hotel. Or you're in a Japanese bathroom pressing buttons at random, hoping one of them flushes. Or you're in a Scandinavian spa, naked and uncomfortable, learning that communal showering is just part of the culture. None of this makes anyone right or wrong. It's just different systems that evolved in different places for different reasons. But the confusion is real. And it's funny, because bathrooms are supposed to be simple. You go in, you do your business, you leave. Except when you're abroad, even that basic process becomes an adventure. You're reading signs you can't understand. You're operating equipment you've never seen. You're following etiquette rules no one explained. And somehow, you survive. I met an American traveler in Amsterdam who told me he'd been keeping a list of every bathroom challenge he'd encountered in Europe. Squat toilets, coin-operated doors, attendants with tip plates, handheld shower heads, dual flush buttons, light switches in weird places, no paper towels, communal sinks. His list was 2 pages long. He said he was going to publish it as a guide for other Americans. I told him that was a good idea. He said someone needed to warn people. I agreed. The stories never stop. Every week there's a new confused tourist, a new bathroom misunderstanding, a new moment of culture shock in the most private of spaces. And trust me, these stories never stop coming. Because as long as Americans keep traveling and bathrooms keep being different, there will always be another person standing in a European restroom, staring at a bidet, wondering what they're supposed to do with it. And that's the beauty of travel. It humbles you in the smallest,